Hello and welcome, Blades fans. It is almost time. We are all in that kind of procrastination mode, I'm sure, where we're pretending that we can focus at work and secretly we're all just waiting on tenterhooks, nerves jangling in our tummies, thinking about the big day to come, thinking about Wembley. Of course, it's been a place where we have suffered previously, but this year I think it's going to be a little bit different. But my guest today is very much hoping that the Wembley curse will continue, very much dreaming about the fact that United may not be able to get over some of that history and some of the problems that we faced in the past. Yes, I am delighted to be joined by a good friend of mine, a man who I've done many a show with for The Sportsman, and who I'm delighted to have here today from the Roke Report. It's Johnny Hawley. How are you doing, Johnny? You okay?
Yeah, all the better for seeing your smiling face tonight, mate.
Oh, just what I like to hear. It's been an interesting one, I think, and I imagine that your smiling face has been almost perpetually on your face for the last few days. Talk to me about 𝗤𝗏𝗏, because from the moment I saw him fold himself up like a deck chair, I've had an oncoming sense of dread about 125,000 Mackhams descending on Wembley. How are you feeling? Have you got over the moment yet?
Maybe just about. I mean, it was spectacular, like, I've got to say. Probably, well, I think definitely my sort of top moment sort of at a Sunderland game probably ever. Certainly at the Stadium of Light. I mean, just like everything around it, you know, the context of the game, the run that we had against Coventry where we hadn't beaten them since 2007 to then, you know, we just got over that. Well, we'd sort of half got over that in the first leg, won that game. To come to the second leg, you know, packed out Stadium of Light. The atmosphere was fantastic. You know, from even an hour or two before the game started, it was just the whole evening it was a fantastic time to be in and around the Sunderland area. And then obviously the way the game went, we were kind of hanging on at times, particularly in the second half of normal time. I thought that was when I started to get a bit squeaky bum time in the ground.
That 𝗍𝗲𝗏 chance that comes right in the last minute. I mean, how were you feeling when that's landing on his head?
I don't know if I can say the words I was feeling. I was absolutely terrified. I just, that felt typical Sunderland for it to be, you know, 180 minutes of backs to the wall action and then to get undone in the last minute. But thankfully, I don't know how he's managed it, but he's managed to somehow contort himself to miss that chance. And then, you know, obviously you've got extra time coming and the nerves are jangling and building up throughout. And to get to that, literally the last kick of the game. And, you know, I kind of was turning to my dad who I was sat with. I was like, you know, this is it, because if we miss this, it's going to penalties. And if it goes to penalties, we're not going to Wembley. So it's now or never. And then for him to, you know, the corner comes in and 𝗤𝗏𝗏, I mean, I thought that was fully deserved as well. To cap off such a brilliant performance from him over the two legs, I was chuffed it was him who scored the goal. I mean, I'd have taken it from anybody. Like, I'd have taken it off 𝗍𝗏𝗏's backside, but I was delighted for him. And just, you know, the noise in the stadium was tremendous. The expression of just relief and joy and euphoria all at the same time from you know, 47,000 people was, God, it was just spectacular. Yeah. So clearly I'm not over it if I can talk about it like that. But yeah, I know, I thought it was a fantastic moment, and it's about as good as it can feel getting to the playoff final, but we were seconds away from it being as bad as it can feel and going out. So, you know, even when we do things the amazing way, we still, like, we have to take it to the last second and make it as painful as it can be first.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I sat and watched the game. I watched first leg, I watched second leg, and 180 minutes, if I'm honest, I didn't think either team looked that on it, if I'm being honest. It was a relatively low quality game. Obviously Sunderland had come with a game plan which I thought you executed perfectly, so don't read this as if I'm taking anything away from obviously the job that you'd done. And you know, you referenced it there, 𝗤𝗏𝗏𝗏 was absolutely outstanding over the two legs. But what worried me then is that after 180 minutes of me kind of going, I think maybe this is our year, that moment, that special response, that kind of explosion of euphoria, of celebration, is that what gives you the confidence? Is that the moment that you think, actually, if you're having a moment like that, that just feels like the one that carries you all the way, doesn't it, with that momentum?
Yeah, well, exactly. It feels like something's happening. It feels like something special's going on. When you have that moment, it's difficult to look past it. And look, come the day of the game, or I'm sure the day before, this will all be replaced by horrific amounts of nerves and, you know, just churning insides constantly in the build-up to the actual match. So, you know, take all of this with a healthy pinch of salt. But it does just have that feeling about it where, you know, it's Coventry in the semis. It's the one team we all wanted to avoid. We get past them. You know, we go in on a run of such horrendous form in the league, you know, losing 5, and I think we only took 1 point out of 6 in the last 6 in total. So we've gone in on the worst run of form. We've had the worst opponent we could have had. We've come through that in such spectacular fashion. It feels like it's written there for us to go and do the job. However, I'll assuage some of your fears and say, really, the most Sunderland thing in the world would be to do all of this and then go to Wembley and go, oh, you guys have never gone up through the playoffs. Oh, well, Dr. Sunderland's in town now, lads, so after you, you can go and lift that trophy. We'll do it next year, don't worry.
Well, if we could see Dr. Sunderland, that'd be perfect, because you've referred to it there, and it's one of the things that really niggles at the back of my mind that's really starting to get to me. Obviously, the Wembley curse, the playoff curse, everything that United have suffered in. You know, I think we've talked about it fairly recently, but up until lockdown, basically, Sunderland had exactly the same kind of curse hanging over them. Obviously, it had been a long time since you'd been able to win at Wembley. You'd really struggled in terms of going up through the playoffs, but you did finally do it. Obviously, it was Wycombe, I think, in 2021-22, was it? So, for United fans, let's take some advice from you. What was different that day when you finally got to that playoff final, the one when you broke the curse, when you finally got over the terrible run that you'd had? What felt different to you on that day, and what can we learn from sort of the Sunderland experience of 2022?
Well, first thing is, it really helps if the team you play have got not really many fans, so you get an extra 10,000 tickets, so you massively outnumber them by 2.5 or 3 to 1.
I don't think we've got much chance of that, have we, this weekend? That doesn't...
No, well, after how hard it was for me to get a ticket, I think he's going to be struggling for us to give you any spares. I think the atmosphere was just one of positivity all day. That was huge, because I think every other time we'd been to Wembley, certainly every other time I'd been, there was either massive anxiety and nerves, like Charlton in 2019 in the League One playoff final, or there was just either a sense that the game didn't really matter, like the Checkatrade Trophy final in 2019, which, you know, you like to win it, but you're not crying if you lose. Or the League Cup final in 2014, where we were against Man City. That was just like, I'm glad we're here. You know, I'm just going to enjoy it regardless. But that day against Wycombe, I spoke to obviously loads of Sunderland fans before the game. We were all in Box Park. There was, thousands of us. And basically everybody I spoke to all said the same thing. You know, we're confident. We feel like this is the time we're going to do it. It just felt different. And I think, look, no disrespect to Wycombe, but they're a much smaller club, so that there wasn't that same level of anticipation and expectation, I think, around them, which is, I think, something that's very different for both of us this time, where, you were in the Premier League last season, you finished on, was it 26 more points, I think you got than us in the end?
Not quite that, mate.
Don't start quibbling about deductions. Don't start with a -2, all right? But, this time, like I say, yous are a massive proposition for us to have to try and get past. I think last time it did feel much more like a mismatch. Feels disrespectful to say, but that's how it felt going in. And it just seemed like things were going to go our way. And before the kickoff, we were sort of singing so loudly it was you couldn't hear the actual music that was being played in the ground on the TV broadcast. So there was just a kind of indomitable spirit around everyone, where just everyone was focused. It felt unified. This time, I think, if I was going to be giving advice to Sheffield United, which, don't take this advice, but if I was going to be giving advice, I would say, it's got to be, everyone's got to be behind the team from minute one. In an occasion like this, I imagine as a player, I mean, obviously I can't speak for being a player, I wish, but...
You mean you were never that good, Johnny? Were you not? Did you not make it as a star?
I don't think Russell Foster Youth League Division 2 is quite the same standard.
Oh, it sounds good to me. I like that.
You'd be disappointed if you'd watched it. But yeah, no, I think the fans make a massive difference, because I think as players, I think they can sense the energy in the crowd, and I think they'll feed off it. So when we've gone with that anxiety and tension, it's felt like the players have played with a level of that themselves. And I'm sure it's a bit of both, If the fans are feeling anxious, it's probably because you're not favourites, so the players are going to have that level of tension. But yeah, it's all about making sure that the team and the supporters, everybody's as confident as possible and not getting overawed by things. Because I've seen Sunderland players on the Wembley pitch just wilt a bit, struggle to impose themselves, and it's so important to get off to a decent start as well. You know, whoever gets off to the better start gets the fans behind them. I can easily see the other set of fans then the anxiety creeps in, and then it gets a bit like, well, how long can we keep this up before we concede? I think things can snowball. So it's a battle of wills, I think, more than anything else, both on the pitch and in the stands.
Yeah, indeed. So I think that's a key message, Blades. That's what we've got to take away. We'll forget everything else that Johnny says today. We'll forget about how excited he is about 𝗍𝗵𝗏𝗏. The message we're taking is that we have to be united. We have to go for this. We have to be believing that we're going to be the team that does it this time. And no pressure, but we've got to try and outsing apparently the entirety of Sunderland. So we'll be
good
fine.
Luck.
I'm sure we'll be fine. There'll not even be that many of you. You're basically the same as Wycombe.
And it's a 3 o'clock kickoff as well, so there'll have been enough time for people to get in the pubs before the game as well. So I think it's going to be rocking come 3
to that point. Of course, a 3:01 kickoff, Johnny. I think they've announced today a slight delay. Obviously, raising money for the 𝗍𝗿𝗏𝗏𝗏 Foundation, so that'll be obviously fantastic for the EFL. But always important to note, maybe that 3:01 is what's going to throw you off your game. You'll be there, you'll be ready. We'll have that extra minutes focus in his mind. Let's go into Sunderland's season then, because obviously you came into this one off the back of a really disappointing last year in the Championship. Obviously, you'd had a fantastic start, then everything, the wheels just seemed to come off, obviously with the change of manager and that sort of drift towards the end of the season and finishing 16th. How shocked are you? Because obviously our good friend Gab Sutton tipped up Sunderland right from the very start. He said that you'd be here, he said you'd be right at the top of the Championship, and we all had a little bit of fun at his expense. But how are you feeling, obviously, coming into this after finishing 4th? Just an unbelievable progress from last season and a huge step forward. How does it feel on a whole to be a Sunderland fan right now? Because it feels like you're on a bit of an upward trajectory.
Well, I couldn't have put it better myself. It feels like everything's going in the right direction. I think, look, I feel like a lot of people recently have retrospectively turned themselves into Gab Suttons. You know, all of a sudden, because we're in the playoff final, I think everybody's now saying, oh, well, you know, obviously I thought we'd get the playoffs. You just look at the players, you look at the squad. Now, yes, that's a valid point. You look at the quality we had, you could make that prediction, but I think quite a lot of people are being wise after the fact at this stage. Whereas, you know, I've not ashamed to say that I didn't think we'd get here. You know, come the start of this season, like you say, last season, the managerial struggles and things like that, you know, lots of discontent around all areas of the club, I would say. I was thinking, you know, hopefully top 8, maybe playoffs if everything clicks. Top 8, even top 10, I'd have said, okay, it's consolidation, it's progress. To go to where we've gone to, I think, is just, I mean, to do it the way we've done it as well, I think is beyond people's expectations. Yes, we've only ended up on 76 points, but a large part of that is because effectively, internally, they've gone, right, we're 4th now, the league doesn't matter anymore, let's get people fit. You know, I think if we'd needed to keep playing to the end of the season, I think you'd have seen us end on something more like 84 points, maybe. Something around there. To go from where we were to where we've got to, I think it's just been phenomenal, really, in terms of the work that 𝗍𝗫𝗐 has done, the recruitment team, and obviously the players themselves have got to take massive amounts of credit, because for such a young team to go through last season and come out of it with the confidence to start this season the way they did, I think, you know, that's not a given. That's something you've got to work at, really, behind the scenes. So it's been great. You know, I didn't see us being here. We got to the semis. I thought we were favourites to go out. We've ended up in the final. So, and for the first time in a long time, the end of the season just feels like a free hit. Because, look, I want us to win. And I'll be gutted if I'm, you know, stood there in whatever block it is, 536 or something of Wembley, you know, come full time or extra time or whatever. And if yous have won, of course I'll be gutted. I'll be really disappointed. But I think for us, because there's not that immediacy, I think, not that urgency of kind of feeling like we need to go up. Whereas I imagine for Sheffield United, it feels maybe a little bit more like this is a big opportunity that you want to really take now. I think for us, it's, you know, if we go up, then fantastic. Club gets a load of money. We get Premier League football. You never know. Maybe we could stay up. Maybe. Maybe not. But if we don't, I feel like, we'll lose players. You know, that goes without saying. I think any team who challenges top end of the Championship, unfortunately, in the modern game, the vultures start circling. But I don't think we'd lose so many players that we'd all of a sudden torpedo next season. So, I think we're in a nice position where if it happens this season, then it happens, and that's fantastic. If it doesn't happen this season, I think we feel like we're in a pretty decent place to go again next year. So, yeah, I'm feeling really, really relaxed at this point in time. But like I say, ask us again in 4 or 5 days, and you'll get a very, very different answer.
I was going to say, Johnny, I'm sat here and I'm seeing somebody confident, relaxed. This isn't a Wembley preview. What are you doing to me? Where's the anxiety? Give me more anxiety, man. So we talk.
Well, the anxiety comes from looking at our. I know your Wembley record's not great, but like you said, neither's ours. Yes, we won that 𝗣𝗵𝗴𝗶𝗹𝗵 trophy, but no fans. It's not the same. One win at Wembley since 1973. It's not the kind of record where you go, oh, I'm scared about playing these behemoths.
I'd kill for it, Johnny. We've got 0 wins at Wembley since 1925. So, let's not equate. We are not the same.
Okay, we might not be bald, but this feels very much like 2 bald men fighting over a comb here, comparing our Wembley records.
I've got 2 hairs. How many have you got?
Well, I've got 3, I think you'll find, actually. So.
I was just going to say, obviously, coming into that sort of reflection on the season, how it's been so far, that kind of amazing progress that you've made, but that fear as well about losing players in the summer. Who are the players that United need to be worried about? Obviously, we know a lot. Obviously, we've seen 48 games now this season. Some of those standout players have already hurt United a lot, such as the game of the Stadium of Light when 𝗍𝗫𝗍 and 𝗦𝗽𝗍 were almost unplayable, I think. Or at least 𝗍𝗏 and Jack Robinson certainly thought they were unplayable that evening. How are you feeling? Which players do you think are going to shine on that Wembley stage for Sunderland?
If he starts, Romain Mundle, 100% without a doubt, you've got to keep an eye on him. Even in the second half of extra time against Coventry, I thought he made a huge difference to the way that we set up going forward. It just allows us to play in a totally different way. And the cherry on the cake is he's class. So, it improves the team and he's a good player. But like I say, I mean, there's still maybe that slightest of question marks over his fitness because he got, I think, about half an hour of football against Coventry. But, it's a different equation to thinking about starting in a playoff final at Wembley. Now, I was getting rinsed on the Second Tier podcast for incorrectly calling Wembley a very big pitch. It's actually the same size as our pitch. I'll correct the record.
Feels like a big pitch, though, doesn't it? I've been calling it a big pitch.
It does feel like a big
pitch.
pitch.
I've called it a big pitch.
Thank you. But I can't do that because it is the size of our pitch. But, like you say, it feels like a big pitch. I think, it's obviously Wembley's such a, I know it's only, whatever it is now, nearly 20 years old, but it's an iconic venue, isn't it? And, everybody dreams of playing there. So it's very, very difficult to... I think it's difficult to keep your shape and stay disciplined in a game like this. So to that end, obviously, our midfield, I think, is going to be key. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we'll get onto team selections and stuff later, but, if we line up with a 4 across midfield like we did in the semis, then that's, to me, that starts alarm bells ringing slightly because I worry about the ability of just 2 players to kind of cover all the ground they need to, as well as being able to get forward. Because I think where we suffered against Coventry was, yes, we were very dogged in defence and we were able to win the ball back, but I think both Job Bellingham and Dan Neil struggled at times to then transition and get out because, if you spent 90 minutes running around desperately chasing and harrying and pressing, when you get on the ball, you want a breather. You don't want to then be, 100 mile an hour in the other direction. But if we don't do that, I think we lose a big strength. So in terms of the key players, it's going to be 𝗍𝗏𝗏, if he plays centrally. He's going to be absolutely vital to the way that we then, once we've won the ball back, are able to turn and try and get him behind. Job Bellingham as well. Again, if we're in a 3, he's got an ability to pick the ball up and stride out and really, make some ground up, which I think he loses if he's in a 2. And then Dan Neil as well, his game's going to be massively changed, whether he's sort of that pivot in a 3, if he's the base of a 3, or whether he's in a 2, or even pushed a bit further forward. So, rambly way of saying, well, I'll just go with 𝗏𝗏𝗏, right? Because he'll be what determines it. Because if he's in the middle, we're probably playing a 3. And that'll, I think, set us up a lot better. and then Romain Mundle on the left wing as well. And obviously, I mean, we've talked about him already, but 𝗵𝗵𝗏 at centre back, you know, if he puts in a display like he did against Coventry, 𝗍𝗵𝗴 is going to have a long old afternoon.
Yeah, indeed. That was one of the areas that I was most interested in, because obviously against Bristol City, one thing United did really, really well was use 𝗍𝗵𝗴's physicality, got him on top of those Bristol City centre-halves. He was winning every first contact for the flick-ons, for the bringing it down, for bringing the midfield into play. And yeah, watching 𝗵𝗵𝗏 be a sort of man colossus at the back the other day, I did start to think, hey, are we going to win any headers up front? Is he...
Not if he's got anything to say about it, I don't think.
I think there'll be one man whose head leaves in a different shape, but also will probably leave a champion if that is the case. So, I agree. 𝗍𝗏𝗚, though, talk to me a little bit, because obviously it's a really interesting one since he signed in January. A big name player, came in with a lot of reputation behind him, obviously being at Roma, and lots of people were talking about him as this player who was going to change the automatic promotion race as it was at the time. What hasn't quite worked for him? Is it been injuries? Is it been playing out of position? Why is it that he's not quite kicked on the way that people expected?
Yeah, well, I think it's a little bit 6 and 2 threes for me between the two things you've just said. You know, playing out of position, he's had good games still, or maybe more accurate to say, he's produced good moments still playing out of position, which, you know, for a player like him who primarily is an offensive player, sometimes producing moments is enough. You know, there was... obviously, in the first leg against Coventry, he plays the pass through for 𝗲𝗏𝗏𝗏 to then go and score the first goal. And then the rest of the game, he kind of all he did was defend, really. But because he produced a moment, that ends up being enough to contribute to the result, and we get the win. But yeah, unfortunately, more often than not, he's tended to play on the left. Why
ever would you play your best ball-playing central midfielder out on the left wing? What a bizarre thing to do.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, we should start a support group for fan bases that have had to go through this, because it gets infuriating at times, doesn't it? You watch them, you just think, just go in there, just go in there and get the ball, and you'll just go in there. But yeah, injuries to Romain Mundle and Tommy Watson have ended up, you know, seeing 𝗍𝗏𝗏 have to play on the left wing too much, which, like I say, it doesn't nullify him, but it certainly negates some of his best aspects, which is that ability to pick those passes to either direction from the middle of the midfield. And then the other thing is just injury. You know, he had a hamstring problem. I think he missed something like 8 or 9 games. That's just off the top of my head, mind. But then obviously you're out for those games. You come back. You're not fully fit yet. You need to work your match fitness up. You need to maybe a couple of appearances off the bench or whatever before you end up actually back at full fitness and able to influence games. So yeah, I think he's been unfortunate in the sense that the circumstances have dictated where he's had to play, and then as well, I mean, like I say, we kind of all but sacked off the last 5 games of the season, really, in service of the greater goal of the playoffs, which it's got its benefits, but obviously the downsides are that the players who play in those games they're almost robbed of a chance to build up some momentum, even personally. You know, Elijah Mayenda is one of the few players who did manage to produce something in that run of games, and I don't think it's any coincidence that he's one of the players who looked sharpest for us over the 2 legs against Coventry. So, yeah, I mean, 𝗍𝗏𝗏, he proved his quality, like I said. He got an assist in the first leg, he got an assist in the second leg. I think he created 10 chances across the 2 games while covering 24 kilometres, playing out of position in a low block. I think, you know, that shows the guy's quality. But as I kind of alluded to earlier as well, it's all about, can we get him in the right positions? Because if we can, he can hurt any team at this level and a lot of teams at the level above. But if we can't, then you start to wonder what you're getting from him that you wouldn't get from somebody else when he's out of position. So yeah, for me, that's where maybe dramatic to say the game will be won or lost there, but I think it's certainly a massive factor in which way it goes.
Yeah, certainly, and I think I agree, because I saw that second half of extra time against Coventry and him being more central, receiving the ball into feet. It felt as though he'd always got space. I was like, wait a minute, there was a man in his back. How's he got space on the ball? That makes no sense. So yeah, certainly can see how he's going to be a really important role in terms of where he plays in this game. But, you know, we've had a lot of Sunderland positivity. We've talked about fantastic moments. We've talked about you winning at Wembley. We've talked about your best players. Talk to me about the sort of weak links, because every team's got them. Obviously, I'm not going to broadcast United's, but You know what I mean. Where are you worried? Where do you think that United might be able to come on and hurt Sunderland in this game at the weekend?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this actually over the last week or so, and to me, I think purely from a Sunderland fan's point of view, i.e. looking at the 2 games we played against you this season and the little bits that you might catch through the rest of the season, I struggle to pin down what Sheffield United's style of play is. So I would wager that in a battle of systems, in a tactical battle, I'd say we probably have the edge. But I think the individual battles is certainly where you can hurt us. I think of, right, don't crucify me, is it 𝗤𝗿 or 𝗤𝗲?
Who knows? Who knows at this stage, Johnny? I go for it. I interchange. Pick one and stick to it. Everyone will back you.
That centre mid who gets stuck out on the wing.
That guy, yeah, I know you mean.
He is a brilliant footballer, and especially at this level. You know, he will give any defence problems, and I don't think we're going to be any exception. If you can, especially if you manage to get Harrison Burrows overlapping him and manage not to get penned in by whoever plays down the right for Sunderland, you know, 𝗬𝗍𝗻 and then another. If you can get that interplay going, I worry about that, because I think our right wing is an area of weakness in the sense that, look, it's either Patrick Roberts, who, great dribbler and works hard defensively, can flatter to deceive and not the quickest. It might be Chris Rigg playing out of position. Well, he's out of position, so immediately there you've got a problem, and he wants to come centrally all the time. It could be Eliza Mayenda playing out on the right-hand side, and then you've got all the problems of having a striker playing on the wing and trying to track back. So no matter which way we set up, I think there's something there that you can get at. So for me, assuming 𝗤𝗻 plays on the left and that you've got behind him, then I think that's an area where you can possibly get a bit of joy, because that would be relying on, from our point of view, on 𝗬𝗍𝗻 putting in another kind of colossus performance at the back, which he can do, but it's a lot of pressure to put on one player. And then aside from that, I think 𝗬𝗻𝗻, you know, that battle between him and presumably Dan Ballard, you know, it's sort of the edge of our 18-yard box, that is going to be massive. I think, especially if one of them manages to get a little, you know, first 5 minutes, let them know you're there. Maybe a little jab, yeah, exactly. If there's one or two of them start getting exchanged in the first 5 minutes, that could get quite tasty as well, because I don't imagine either of them are going to back down from a fight. So if Ballard manages to get the better of 𝗬𝗻, then I think potentially for us that maybe takes an option away from you going forward and makes you a bit easier to predict. But obviously from your point of view, if 𝗬𝗻 starts to get the better of Ballard, then all of a sudden you've got flick-ons, knockdowns, crosses into the box. And not to give too much away from our point of view, but I do think crosses into the box is an area where we have struggled. I mean, Coventry are very much a crossing side. They got 2 goals against us. And I think back to games during the season like Plymouth at home, where we ended up dropping points and drew 2-2 with a goal in the last 10 minutes. And all Plymouth did the last 10 minutes of that game was just hoist balls into the box. And that's all it was. It doesn't have to be precise. It's not like you're picking men out and whipping balls in. I think Anthony Patterson in goal for Sunderland, when he's on it, he's great. And, you know, he tends to be reasonably consistent. The problem is, when he's off it, he's really off it. You know, he's very much sort of ceilings up there, but the floor's right down here kind of player. And I think he has a flappered across or a misjudgment or, you know, something of that ilk. He's got that in him where if you manage to get enough balls into the box, almost just through law of averages, you know, so he spills something, or maybe or the communication's not there. Somebody doesn't know their job, doesn't pick a man up. You know, we've seen it at Swansea away, we've seen it at Portsmouth at home as well. Whether it results in a goal or not, we find it. We get flustered, I think, when a lot of balls come into the box in a short space of time. So if 𝗬𝗻𝗻𝗻's on it as well, that becomes doubly dangerous. So yeah, for me, it's 𝗤𝗻 and 𝗬𝗻 are the 2 individual names I'm worried about, and it's for us. I think it's whatever happens on that right flank there's something to get at. And yeah, the goalkeeper, I think. But having said that, last time we played at Wembley, Patterson kept a clean sheet and he made an excellent one-on-one save in the second half. So I'm hoping that he channels that performance more than he channels that run of 3 games where he gave a goal away everyone in a row this season. So the duality of man on display, perhaps.
Yeah, so we get the right version of him at Wembley, and the one who's a little bit less reliable, shall we say, in terms of the way that he's going to play. So final bit in terms of that kind of reflections on things that have happened in the past before we do our predictions and look at exactly what the game might look like. United, obviously, our semi-final. We broke the record for the biggest ever win in the Championship playoff semi-finals. Absolute domination across 2 legs against Bristol City, and felt a bit sorry for him, to be honest, by the end at Bramall Lane, because those fans had come a long, long way on a Monday night, and they were so good. But yeah, you ended up feeling a little bit sorry for them. Did you manage to catch United games? What were your reflections on that one, and how United sort of comfortably saw off Bristol City, and did that increase any worries for you in terms of how we might be at Wembley?
So I'd probably say about 60 minutes or so of the first leg, and I watched probably about 45 minutes of the second leg, purely because I thought by the second leg, look, it was over as a contest. Let's be brutally honest. I mean, the game was done when the red card came out in the first leg, really, I think. You know, if we're being brutally honest, and I don't mean that as disrespectful to Bristol City, because they did phenomenally well to get in the playoffs, but I think everybody kind of knew it was maybe a bridge too far. But obviously the manner of the 2 defeats, or the 2 wins from your point of view, was quite emphatic in the end. But I almost don't read into it at all, because to me it just didn't feel like a real barometer of where Sheffield United are at. Now again, that might be unfair, but I thought, that first leg, the first half, I thought Bristol City, for the first probably 30 minutes, might be fair to say, gave you a bit of a game. There was chances at either side. I think, did they hit the crossbar? I think early on as well, with an effort from distance.
I think it was the only shot they had, but yeah, from about 30 yards, he hit the bar.
yeah. I mean, it was all downhill from there. But yeah, there was maybe enough in that first half an hour to suggest that Sheffield United can be got at. But I think, like I say, as soon as the red card came out and the penalty was given, you go 1-0 up. I think we all knew what was coming. So really, from that point on, I find it difficult to draw too much in terms of comparisons for what the final might look like. Whereas I think, by contrast, I think for Sheffield United, you can look at our legs against Coventry, and I think you can say that's close to the Sunderland we're going to see turn up in the final. Whether it's a slightly different shape or different personnel or slightly different tactics, it's by and large, that's kind of what you're going to get. Whereas I think Sheffield United, and again, this could be my ignorance, but I think Sheffield United maybe have got more of a potential to surprise us with what happens on Saturday, because, you could easily come out all guns blazing and try and go for it early. You could come out very measured. It could be very cagey. I mean, I know what I expect to happen, but I think you've got more of a scope for mixing things up than we do.
Yeah. And I think as well, it's that squad depth, isn't it, for United as well, that if we do come out firing, that we've also got that opportunity to change it if it's not worked, or if we've not quite got it right from the start. I think that squad depth hopefully stands us in real good stead. Yeah,
and just on that as well, that's part of, I've probably wound up some Sheffield United fans by saying I feel like system-wise and tactically, I'd say maybe we would slightly have the edge if it becomes a bit of a game of chess type situation. Just, I think 𝗤𝗿𝗲 has maybe got more of that in his locker than Wilder. But where you, I think, definitely have the edge, and more than an edge, is that individual quality and that squad depth, like you say. I mean, we've named some players already on the pitch who'll be great. I mean, 𝗤𝗍𝗄 we've not even mentioned in the midfield for Sheffield United. He's an excellent, excellent footballer. You've got a lot of very, very good names who can come on and cause us problems. So, when I talk about the tactics and the systems, it's not me playing Sheffield United down at all. I make you the favourites. Not maybe by a massive margin, but I certainly make you the favourites. And, I think most people do, and the bookies have you as favourites as well. But yeah, that quality and strength and depth you've got, that could be a huge factor, couldn't it? Especially if it goes to extra time.
You've got to hope so. Obviously, he's going to be... Well, you'd think at least one of 𝗍𝗻𝗄, 𝗵𝗵 Diaz, Tom Cannon, they're all going to be sat on the bench waiting to come on, and hopefully they'll come on with something to prove. I know I was joking with somebody the other day where we sat and we were talking about it, and I said, look, I spent a long time complaining about Ryan Brewster, and 20 million quid, it's just not worked, he's not good enough, everything's gone wrong. But we were waiting for the moment when he owed us something and he could pay us back. And he decided he was going to pick his moment, pick his time, and he would pay us back by getting the winner at Hillsborough. And all was forgiven. Every penny was forgiven, Ryan. We loved you. And I did wonder, and I wonder if this has played on your mind, or I know, obviously, I think it was Graham Falk that I was talking to on What the Falk the other day, and he said it was playing on his mind that maybe this would be Tom Cannon's moment to pay us back for having not quite clicked. Obviously, you were after him in January. What are your thoughts? Obviously, it's not quite worked for him so far at United, but how does it feel, obviously, looking at Tom Cannon? I think he's already got a couple of goals against you this season. Is he somebody that you're worried about coming off the bench for that sort of last 15, 20 minutes?
You'd be daft if he wasn't, wouldn't you? Yeah, I mean, I think, did he cost something like 13 million quid? You know, when you're shelling that kind of money out on a striker, then you know they've got to have something about them. So, you know, like you say, he scored, maybe not had the best of times at Sheffield United, not hit the ground running, but we're talking about one game. You know, we're not talking about a 38 or a 46 game league season where you go, right, you want somebody who's consistent and every week they're going to deliver something. All he needs is to have one day. The same as any player on that pitch. You know, you're not picking somebody for, they're a 6 or a 7 out of 10 every week, but they're never a 9 or a 10. You almost want people on the pitch who could be, they might be a 0 out of 10 some weeks, but if they've got that 10 out of 10 in them, you want them on the pitch because that's where they can hurt teams and you know, make those telling contributions. So Cannon's definitely one that I'd be worried about. Brereton Diaz the same. I mean, I remember when he was playing for Blackburn, I actually went to the game at Ewood Park a couple of seasons ago. Our first season back in the Championship, we lost 2-0. Brereton Diaz scored both goals, and he was rather enjoying giving some to us in the away end as well, because we might have been giving him some beforehand. So you know, he's not shy of a goal or two against us as well. So yeah, I mean, look, you rattle off those names and any team in the Championship would take them, even just to be a squad player. 90% of us would take them. So,
2 last questions for you then, Johnny. First one, obviously, you've used a couple of different systems through the season. You'd sort of started with that sort of very fluid 4-3-3 with the wingers high, particularly down the left, obviously using players like Mundell to really good effect. Obviously, following their injuries, you changed it a little bit. You've had some days of 4-4-2, somewhere it's sort of been a little bit mix and match with how you've put that together. How do you think you're going to approach it at Wembley? Are you expecting a continuation of what we saw against Coventry, with you almost backing off and letting United have the ball, or do you think you're going to come in to try and play and be a bit more dominant with it?
I would certainly expect us to play in a similar style, as in, I do think we're going to let you probably have more of the ball if you want it. Mm-hmm. To be honest, I mean, I think both teams are going to start pretty cagily. I don't imagine either of us are going to be flying out the blocks, which is a complete contrast to what Coventry did in the first leg, for example. They tried to really come at us early. And there's logic in that, don't get us wrong, but I think all season, even when we played in that really fluid 4-3-3 with Mundell high up the pitch early on and we were winning, you know, a lot of games, I think we won 9 out of the first 12. Even then, we didn't tend to be a possession-based team. You know, we weren't recycling possession and retaining the ball for the sake of it. We were very much, okay, once we've won the ball, we're getting in transition and we're getting up the pitch and we're going to try and hurt them. So I expect to see more of the same there. The big question mark is going to be around, do we line up with a 4-4-2 or do we line up with a 4-3-3/4-5-1 type thing? If it's me, I'm picking a 4-3-3 if Mundell's fit. I want Mundell on the left. I almost don't care who's on the right at this point. It could be Mayende, it could be Roberts, it could be a Rig or somebody out of position. I want to have the 3 in midfield because I think we need a sitter in this game. And I think we need the 2 either side. So, you know, let's just assume it's Dan Neil, Joe Bellingham and 𝗍𝗓 for argument's sake. I think we need the 2 of them either side who can then, you know, they can push out and help the fullback a little bit if they need to. Go 2 versus 1. They can tuck in and maybe one drops back, help the centre-backs. One can push forward if, say, 𝗍𝗫 Sousa's getting a lot of the ball and being able to just, you know, left and right and dictate the play. We need somebody who can push on and get at them. Whereas I think if we play the 4-4-2, yes, it probably gives us a bit more of an edge in behind, but I think you just sacrifice too much control. And I think against Coventry we could get away with it because I think we knew they weren't going to try and play through us; they were going to try and go around us. I think this is going to be a very different proposition. So yeah, for me, I'd want to be seeing the 4-3-3. I think if you put a gun to me head and I had to put money on it, I'd say it probably would be the 4-3-3. But if there's any doubt about Mundell's fitness, I can see him being tempted to just stick with the same team. And look, they have got us here, so they're not mugs, but I would worry a little bit about setting up in that way at Wembley.
Yeah, I have to admit, when I saw that, part of me did think, actually, I wouldn't mind them sitting in this deep 4-4-2. Obviously, there's huge concerns. We've seen it, like I referenced before, in behind with Mayenda, with Isidore running off the back of Anel and Robinson. But that's the worry for me, that transition to those. I think if you play how you did against Coventry, I'd like to hope that with that much ball control and getting 𝗍𝗲𝗓 into the positions where Coventry were able to get some of their wide players, we've got to be able to try and play through to try and hurt you. So, it's interesting. I very much am hoping that you're wrong and it's going to be a 4-4-2. Let's hope that that's how things land. So, final question. We'll both do it so that we're both committed live. Well, not quite live, but on camera. Score predictions. Where are you going? How do you think this game plays?
Do you know you're actually the first person who's asked us for a score prediction yet about this game, so I haven't actually had to think about it yet too much. I don't think it's going to be a high scorer. I think there's going to be one goal in it either way. If there's even a goal in it, it could easily go to penalties. I hope it doesn't, because I don't think my heart can take it.
Let's actually, just before we do, I'll give you more time to think about this, because there's a couple of things that are on my mind with that, what you've just said there. It goes to penalties. I think United are currently on a run where we've lost something like 8 of our last 10 penalty shootouts. We're in a terrible run of form. We always lose them to everybody. But am I right in saying that you've missed your last, is it 6 in the league or something like that?
So we've scored 1 in 5 in the league this season, which I believe is the worst conversion rate of a team to have this many penalties since the Championship rebrand. Which
I've
doesn't
got more
fill
hair
me with
than
a
you,
massive
Johnny.
amount of... I'll have to go and get the scissors in and chop mine off here, because we're losing this particular conversation. But that's a mixture of takers as well. Patrick Roberts has taken 2, scored 1, missed 1. Isidore taken 2, missed 2 within 10 minutes. Yeah. And for some reason, Luke O'Nien took 1 against Millwall at home. And unsurprisingly didn't score because he's a centre-back. So if it goes to penalties, you'll see a Johnny Hawley-shaped hole in the back of the Wembley stand where I've
Your Wile E. Coyote
and just
your
legged
way
it out. Yeah, I can't stay and watch that, honestly. If it goes to penalties... If you manage to lose to us on penalties, you genuinely are cursed, because there's no other way you could possibly explain that. It's not even on the cards. But to go back to the prediction, I mean, I think, like I say, it's going to be a tight game. I wouldn't be surprised if it did end up going to penalties, as much as I hate to say it. I don't think there'll be more than 1 goal in it either way. But I do, weirdly, and this has just occurred to us now, I see both teams scoring. I don't think either of us keep a clean sheet, so I think it's going to be, let's say it's going to be 1-1 at the end of normal time. It's going to go to extra time. And I've got to say Sunderland are going to win. I've got to say it, because you're not going to say it. So
yourself up to it. I could feel it coming.
I'm trying to convince myself internally that's what it is. So I'm going to say 2-1 after extra time to Sunderland, with the massive caveat that I could also very easily see it going the other way. But either way, it's going to be tight. And I think it's going to be possibly an awful game for the neutral. Yeah. But, who cares about them? They're not the ones who are going to be in Wembley watching it. We are. Yeah. So just do what we want, lads.
Absolutely not bothered what the neutrals think. As long as come 5:30, 6:30, however long it takes, I'm still sat in Wembley celebrating. That's all that matters. I don't mind if it's rubbish. My score prediction... I agree with you. I think it's going to be a really tight game. I think it's going to be difficult either way. But I think, you said something earlier about what was different when Sunderland finally did it against Wycombe. Well, it's how I felt against Bristol City. I walked out and the players were celebrating with the tribute to George Baldock. His song was playing. Everybody was quite emotional. We were celebrating. We had a bit of a party atmosphere around Bramall Lane for most of the second half. And I just turned to my family around me and I just said, this is different this time. It is. We're not doing it again. We're not here this time for the same as before. It feels different. And so I'm hoping that what you said is right. The fact it feels different, that we've got that confidence, I think United are going to nick it. I think we're going to win 2-1 and finally put all of this nonsense about a curse to bed. I can stop being the pessimist and I can say, I think we're going to do it this time. So there we have it. We've both predicted. We've both gone through how Sunderland have got here, how the game's going to look. The last thing to say is, and you can figure out whether I mean it or not, but good luck. I hope you have a great day.
I'm not even going to bother saying it. It'd be too fake.
No, thank you very much for your time. I massively appreciate it, Johnny. It's been great having you on. So anything you want to plug, anywhere that you want to send anybody who's watching this video to check out more of your stuff?
Well, no, I mean, thanks for having us on, mate. It's been a pleasure. If there's any Sunderland fans that have stumbled across this, then get yourselves over to 𝗏𝗏 Report, at 𝗏𝗏 Report on Twitter/X, 𝗏𝗏Report.sbnation.com for all the articles, reactions, news, everything you could want. And follow, subscribe to 𝗏𝗏 the podcast, which is 𝗏𝗏 Report's new-ish, it's been going about a month, daily or daily-ish set of podcasts. We've got everything: opinions, news, roundups, previews, guests. I mean, if you want any football content, just go there. You'll find something. But yeah, no, thanks again for having us, mate. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And I won't say good luck, but I will say I hope you have a great time down in London either way, because it's a special weekend away, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And it's one of those where, you know, as long as until 3 o'clock, I hope we both have an amazing time. After 3 o'clock,
exactly.
It's every man for himself, but we knew that coming in, so it's okay. Now, thank you very much for joining me, and thank you to everybody at home who's been watching or listening to this podcast. Massively appreciate it. The last thing to say is that, yeah, this one's it. I will see you at Wembley. Johnny, I'll see you at Wembley, and up the Blades. 𝗚𝗿𝗏𝗕𝗿 𝗚𝗿𝗏𝗏𝗏 𝗚𝗿𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏